Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, dedicated to empowering fathers to build stronger families and communities. Each week, we bring you conversations with experts, everyday dads, and community leaders who share their wisdom and experience to help you become the father your children need. Whether you're a new dad just starting out, a seasoned father facing new challenges, or someone who mentors and supports fathers in your community, you'll find practical advice, heartfelt stories, and evidence-based strategies to strengthen your fathering journey. You can find all our previous episodes, resources for fathers, and information about Urban Light Ministries programs at urbanlight.org. If you find value in our podcast, please subscribe and share with other fathers in your life who might benefit from this community. And now, here's Pastor Eli Williams with this week's episode.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams here, and it is a delight to have you along. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in on our conversation. Today, we have with us Chris Kelley. Chris is the Director of Community Development for Highland, and don't worry, we're going to talk about that later. But for right now, Chris, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're glad you're here. And this is all about dad stuff, so we're going to start, as you might guess, with a question about your own experience as a kid growing up. What was your relationship like with your dad? And just tell us some of your fond memories of Chris and Dad.
Yeah. Raised as an only child, so I've got...
you're one of those guys.
Yep. All the strengths and all the weaknesses of being a kid that pretty much believed I'm the center of the universe, in my family. I've actually a really good relationship with my dad, and I still have him. He's 86 now. He's the primary caregiver for my mother, who unfortunately is probably entering into late-stage Alzheimer's at this point. Good, hard-working, blue-collar dad. He was a former Coast Guard guy, and then went right into the Postal Service and was a letter carrier as far as I can remember. And, pretty clockwork work schedule, and just worked hard and came home and worked hard as a dad and a husband. And, so no complaints, solid kind of, what would you call it, middle class work and family life. Very
good. Cool. So, as an only child, how do you think that impacted you in terms of socialization? I mean, did you have any issues there at all?
Yeah, not until I got older did I kind of understand generally speaking, the issues with being an only child. So I had all those for sure. But then there's just the kind of person that I am. I'm a pretty introverted, kind of stoic personality. I'll stare at a person, but not because I'm trying to be creepy. It's just I'm thinking as I'm looking at them, and that can be off-putting. So you can imagine as an introverted kid, I would just stare at people while I was thinking about them, often thinking, do I even want to talk to them? But at the same time, I was an athlete, so I was always part of a team. But I always had this feeling of, I'm in a group, but I'm alone. I always had that kind of a feeling as far back as I can remember. And with that, these feelings of, why am I weird? Why can't I just be like so-and-so? And so, I probably should see a counselor at some point, but, I don't know.
No, you're fine, man. You're fine. So what's your relationship with your dad like now?
Yeah, it's great, but it's strained because of, what he's walking my mother through. So,
sure.
I would say last year in particular, I realized he's not a young guy. So he's dealing with everything that an 86-year-old has to deal with. but he's also caring for my mother. And, last year her mobility is getting compromised, and she definitely has the hallmark memory issues. And I'm half Japanese. My mother is the one that's full Japanese. She doesn't speak any more English. And so last year, all those things really started to manifest. And it's changed my dad, and it's changed our relationship, because he has to be so focused on being the primary caregiver, which, to his credit, I mean, he's on a mission. He's going to see my mom through this. And I'm supporting him and them as best I can. But, there's nothing fun about the situation. It's just hard. So,
yeah. Well, listen, I'm really sorry to hear that. And I agree with you. Kudos to your dad. I know a little bit about being a caregiver. Of course, my situation was temporary. And she got better.
Oh, good.
So I can imagine what your father is going through, and how difficult it must be for you to try to find ways to be supportive of them both, really.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's times like this that maybe for the wrong reasons, I'm kind of thankful that I have a stoic personality, because it is what it is. I'm not here to say that it feels good or that it's easy, but we just keep walking, and eventually this chapter of the story will come to its conclusion. And
Yes.
until then, it's just not fun. It's not good.
Yeah. No, of course not. How do you communicate what's happening with your mother and your father to your children?
Yeah, as much as we could up until last year and a little bit this year, trying to have my parents over, and they're fully aware of the situation. And as a dad, I told them a long time ago that I wouldn't hide what I believe is true from them. And, so I haven't hidden the truth of the nature of this disease and the toll it takes on a family, and, all the hard things about it. But at the same time, I share with them just the grace of God in the midst of this. There are so many things about this that could be worse. Right now they could be way worse. And there have been a number of occasions where, I'll use the phrase God showed up, but the truth is God is always with us.
Yeah.
But there are just these moments where we feel like he's, really obviously with us. And there have been occasions like that. And to a certain extent, the kids have to process that the best they can.
What are their ages, Chris?
Yeah, my daughter, she's 18. She graduated from high school this past spring, so last year. And she's in a little bit of a gap year as we're taking a breath and kind of realigning for next steps into the future. And then I got two sons. My older son, my middle kid, he's 16. He's a new driver. So we're, dealing with all that stuff. And then my youngest, he's 14, and he's about to wrap up his 8th grade year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch to a happier topic here.
Sure. Yeah.
Talk about your experience becoming a dad for the first time. What were the dominant emotions surrounding that?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. Being in middle-aged, I'm living out the cliche of looking backwards a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking about the first day that I saw each of my kids, and with my daughter, being the first, so much of it was it was just surreal, right? But it really wasn't until the moment she was born and, I saw her with my own eyes and they placed her in my arms that it became real. And with that, all kinds of crazy stuff flashed through my mind, this instant, I would die for you. And, I'd kill for you too, all of that. It was this weird, almost this fight or flight instinct just suddenly was awoken in me as a dad. And even though I'm a stoic, I've always been an athlete. I've always been a martial artist as well. I would get my aggression out that way. And I remember very distinctly feeling all of that in a moment. And then with the boys, it was a little different. A lot of that anticipation and unknown territory wasn't there. But what was interesting is for all three of the kids, the Lord gave us their names really clearly. And with the boys, it was both this sense of, I'm putting leadership into them and I'm making them kind of like warriors in a way. And I don't exactly know what I was thinking at the time about that, other than, well, that seems cool, right? But when I had the boys, with my middle kid, he came out with bright blue eyes and nearly white blonde hair. And I remember holding him. So he takes after my wife, obviously.
Yeah.
And I remember holding him, and we had this resident doctor that had kind of been traveling with us. And he kept looking at my son and then looking at me. And by the third or fourth time he did it, I was like, is there something on your mind? And he just kind of broke eye contact. He's like, no, everything's fine. It's like, this is my son. Just, I can almost hear what's going on in your head. This is my son. He looks nothing like me, And then with my youngest, it was really much more relaxed. I kind of felt like, okay, I know what to expect. It was all C-sections. So for those, for families that have had C-sections, you just schedule it. And, an hour and a half later, there's your kid. So, so there's all that. Yeah. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. Well, they grow up so fast, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was just talking to a young dad the other day, and I just told him all the stereotypes, all the cliches, all of them, they're all true. Every single one. So,
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so.
I want to shift gears a bit here and have you talk about what you do. It's very interesting to me, and I think our audience will as well. And I still kind of scratch my head. Let's see. You work for a real estate company, but you do like community development. I sometimes get confused just trying to figure it all out. So let's unpack this. Okay. Yeah. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? Who do you do it for?
Yeah.
And for what reason?
Okay. So you're going to get a little bit of a word salad, but it's the best I got. So you're right. I do work for a real estate development firm based out of Columbus, Ohio, called Highland. They've been in business doing primarily large-scale residential communities, but they do commercial and industrial, commerce park, tech park stuff as well. And for anybody who works in that industry, it's a pretty well-defined process. We come into a community and we'll assess the needs of that community and then design according to those needs some type of mixed product community or commercial development or a tech commerce park. And the idea there is not just the profitability of a business model, which is important, but the deeper mission that we're on is to encourage flourishing in communities. And, if we could get away with it and it wouldn't be so confusing, we would really talk about bringing the shalom of God into communities, which isn't just any one thing. It's the integration of a number of different things in sort of a healthy ecosystem. And the outcome is flourishing and thriving and growth and things that are healthy and life-giving. And economics is definitely a part of that. So that's really the heartbeat of the business side. The umbrella, the philosophical umbrella, if I could put it that way, excuse me, is that there's a desire to be a kingdom enterprise, a gospel enterprise. And there's always been a nonprofit presence kind of running alongside the business. And I bridge between the business and the nonprofit presence, which is that community development corporation. So that's called Common Ground, which is something we typically don't refer to. We usually just talk about Highland collectively. And then there's also a sister nonprofit called Pray for Ohio, which is really about prayer, obviously. But alongside the business, as we introduce real estate into a market that needs it, we're also meeting ministers in the community. They could be pastors at a church. They could be the executive director or leadership team of a nonprofit or some type of social service group. They could just be people who have a minister's heart and they're serving their community in some capacity. They could be teachers. They could be business owners, people just like yourself. And because of the nature of real estate development, we're going to be in a community for a number of years, which allows me the opportunity to walk alongside and develop deep relationships with people who are also serving the flourishing of a community, just not necessarily on the real estate side. And so the grand idea of all that is, as the fruitfulness of the business increases and the profitability of the business increases, there's an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, tithe out of the business and continue to invest in the community through other expressions such as churches and nonprofits and schools and maybe certain community development initiatives. Could be a playground, could be a park. It could be putting some gas in the tank of a nonprofit that's doing wonderful work. Any number of things, all collectively serving to help that community flourish. So I want to say that's a nutshell, but that's a big nut. And I hope more of it made sense than not.
Well, it just seems like an amazing concept. I mean, to pull all those things together, you're thinking as an organization, as a company, you're thinking holistically.
Yeah.
About building community, from the real estate to the actual health, overall health and strength of a community. I think that's phenomenal. And is that happening much? Because this is the first time I've heard about this all-encompassing approach to building a community.
At the beginning of this journey, we kind of had the assumption there's got to be other teams or groups that are thinking this way. And to a certain extent, I think that's true, maybe different facets of it. The idea of a business trying to be generous or philanthropic is not new.
Right.
But what we have discovered, at least in our neck of the woods, maybe Ohio, I don't know about the broader Midwest because we're just focused on Ohio right now. It seems as though I don't know if we're unique, but we're at least uncommon. The more holistic, integrated, a desire for sustainability and long-term impact, which is really not about us showing up and imposing a thing or telling anybody what to do. It's really about coming in and supporting the people that God has already placed in the community, who are they live there, they're part of the fabric of the community, and just supporting them over a number of years, in the hopes that we just aid in the flourishing work that they're already doing. So that model apparently is uncommon, but I think the underlying theology and the outworking of those doctrinal principles aren't new. I think they're all biblical, but yeah. So maybe we're pioneering in a little bit, and so who knows if it's going to work. But we feel like that's God's call. So our answer is yes.
It's a different version of how I feel about the importance of fatherhood work with a strong, responsible, skilled, nurturing father in a family, working intimately with the mother to raise their children together, is the model for a strong family.
Mm-hmm.
Strong families like that are the bricks to a strong community.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, all the research is there. I mean, anybody can look up the research and see how clearly true that is. And so the more strong fathers we have, the stronger our community is going to be, which makes it a better place for children,
Yeah.
which is always the bottom line for us. And if we can do that in a holistic way, as you're talking, to build that family, to teach that father and walk alongside him and join together in family, in community as fathers, to encourage one another, to build up one another. That's that's the track we're on with Fathering Strong. So I see some parallels here with what you're doing. Yeah. And how we see fatherhood work. So that having been said, that was a PSA, no extra charge.
Yeah.
For that. But if there is some way in which we could work alongside each other to build community, that's literally from the inside out.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you 100%. We know that at the nucleus of anything that you would call community is really that micro community of a healthy and stable family. Yeah. And there is a design to that's very clear and very intentional from the Lord. It's not hard to understand. It's incredibly hard to practice because we live in a world that in so many ways has been designed to tear apart and just break apart the core pieces of what comprises a healthy and stable family. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, we can design a beautiful community, but if it's not populated with healthy families that want to be in community, yeah, it's just a shell, So, yeah, we're with you. That's part of the lens of every community we look at is, what are the considerations of the youth, coming out of the COVID season, a lot of the gaps in education, a lot of the identity attacks on our kids, just the further breaking down of parenting and the family structure. And then by extension, the community in which a family can thrive within, even that's breaking down. There's nothing that's happening in isolation. It's all connected. Yeah. And so we've been asking the question a lot of, well, how can we touch as much of that as possible? We're not looking to own any of it or take over someone's expertise. But there's no one problem to solve. We kind of have to touch as much of it as we possibly can.
Absolutely. My guest today is Chris Kelley, and we are talking community today on Fathering Strong. Of course, that starts, as he was just saying, with the family and then outward. So we're going to continue along that track. And I want to ask you, after this break, Chris, what the challenges and rewards are of the work that you are doing. And maybe share with us some examples of how you're making a difference in your very interesting and impactful work. I'm Eli Williams. This is Fathering Strong. We're going to take a short time out, and we'll be back after this.
Every father faces a crucial question. How do I become the dad my children truly need? I'm Bruce Stapleton, and my new book, Fathering Strong, God's Blueprint for Leading Your Family, offers the guidance you've been searching for. Drawing from scripture and real-life experiences, this book provides practical wisdom for fathers at every stage, from cradling a newborn to connecting with adult children. Discover how to build a legacy of faith, courage, and love through authentic fatherhood. Available now where books are sold.
Welcome back. This is Fathering Strong. Eli Williams here. Chris Kelley is with me. Bruce Stapleton is the man behind the curtain. He's the one doing all the real work here to make sure that Fathering Strong is all that it can be. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today again. And I want to just let you know that we don't take it lightly that you took time out of your very busy schedule to be with us here today. Appreciate it very much. Before the break, we were talking about Highland and common ground. We didn't touch on Pray for Ohio any, but we'll get there. So in this work, I guess I'll start with what motivated you to be a part of this? I don't know if you were part of the inception of it or if you came along later. You can tell me that. But what drew you to this kind of work?
So I've been part of the team. I'll put it as a full-time, team member of Highland for only 3 years now, almost 3 years. I've been in relationship with Highland probably for a little over 5 years, just prior to COVID, so maybe a little longer than that, because there's another organization called For Columbus that's part of this ecosystem. Highland was part of founding that organization, which is a city-reaching organization in Columbus, Ohio. So at that time, I was an executive pastor at a church, a church local to Columbus. I had met another member of kind of the Highland community who invited me to consult, just informally, not like a formal relationship, with the For Columbus team, and our relationship continued to grow from there. But prior to that, I've always had this feeling that the people of God are supposed to just be everywhere. We're supposed to have a certain sense of gospel identity that really has no boundaries. There's no place in which we can't go. And I can't really tell you where it came from. I can just remember always feeling that way. And I didn't start following Jesus until I was almost 25. But I can look back to that day and some of the first mission trips that I took overseas. And I witnessed community and the people of God gathering and then dispersing back into the city. And I just felt like, well, I'm no biblical scholar, but that kind of looks like what I see in the book of Acts, the people of God gathering and worship and fellowship. They care for one another. Then they go back out and they permeate the workplace, the marketplace, the schools, So when I was working full-time vocationally as a pastor, I think the elements of that existed within the structure that I was working in, but it didn't quite fit for me. And so when I was increasingly exposed to the city, and COVID really accelerated this because the needs just erupted. And as hard as that season was, there was all this opportunity to engage in mission and to partner with people, especially since it was such a divisive time on so many levels. That really put it in my heart that there are some people who are really well suited to kind of being inside the fort. I like to go out in the woods and mix it up. Let's go find some trouble. Let's go break something, or let's go fix something. That's the way I'm wired. I want to go out. So the nature of what we do at Highland, I'm constantly going out, constantly discovering, seeking opportunities to build, to develop. I get to meet such an awesome variety of people who are serving the Lord, brothers and sisters all over the state. All the stories are so fascinating. And I get to see, I just think it's such a privilege. I get to see so many different facets of how God is working in and through his people to mend a broken world and to reach people that don't yet know him. And Lord willing, this is my life's work. I hope I get to have the honor of walking this out until I get carried out on my shield and I get to go to the great feasting hall in the sky, or, whatever's going on up there. So, so it feels like a win-win all around right now.
Yeah. I'm really happy that you've found your lane, and not everybody has. So praise God for that, right?
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. So what are the major challenges, or is there one big challenge that
Yeah.
is, something that keeps you working at it?
So I've come to actually believe in spiritual warfare. Even as a pastor, I didn't know it at the time, but I think maybe it was just more of a mental exercise. It was an intellectual thing. I've noticed in the past 3 years in particular, I mean, it's just gotten ridiculous at times, just overt opposition to things. At the beginning of it, some of it's just, I don't know, I tried to rationale my way through it, if that makes sense, try to make sense of things. But then it dawned on me, as the Lord was speaking into this, that no, we really do have an enemy. And it's not some mindless monster out there. It's a very well coordinated, sophisticated, we're warned about the principalities and powers. And as I've been studying that space, it has helped me to understand the systems that we're working against.
Mm-hmm.
And consequently, those systems are working against us. And this is all actually still pretty raw for me because I'm emerging from this season of really coming to terms with the reality of this stuff that I think most of us think is kind of like a myth or a legend. We wouldn't say it is because we know what the Sunday school answer is.
Yeah.
But until you're really confronted, attacked, you sense the presence of things, you see the evidence of things, you realize that not only are you a target, but your loved ones are a target, your colleagues are a target, the very nature of the mission you're on is a target because, as one astute person told me, it might well be that you've become a real threat. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you, but the call from the Lord has not just been clear and consistent. It grows in intensity. And so to whom shall I go? I mean, the Lord has called, and the only correct answer is yes. So I'm resolved to just kind of keep my head down and keep my hand on the plow and keep pushing. And if the attacks come, the attacks come. I got to trust the Lord in that. So that's been the biggest thing, and probably going to remain the biggest thing.
Well, please know that you're not alone in that. That there are lots of battles going on, lots of fronts in this war.
Yeah,
this spiritual war that's being waged. So prayer is a must.
Yeah,
and the more prayer, the better. Which leads me to prayer for Ohio, or pray for Ohio. What is that?
Yeah, another space where I'm a recent believer. I would have never told you that prayer is not important or ineffective, but it was from the neck up. It was just, I read that in a book someplace, and so it must be important. But part and parcel with the realization of the reality of the unseen world, the hidden world from us, the supernatural. Prayer has been, it's a non-negotiable, critical thing. If I could describe maybe the basic nature of what I do as kind of ground war activity, prayer is air war. And from a kingdom perspective, I'm realizing that maybe the governance of the kingdom, our participation in it, in here on the earth, it really is facilitated by prayer. We have access to the Lord that we didn't build, and we certainly don't deserve, but He created and invited us into. We have an authority that's been given to us, not because of us, but because of the authority of Jesus. And so many of us, myself included, either are unaware of these things from Scripture or under-equipped or, what have you. But, the product of that is just we're largely ineffective in that space if we even actually value prayer, which, the enemy has done a great job really kind of undermining our value for things that are really critical to our thriving as believers. But so anyway, all that to be said, Pray for Ohio, a sister nonprofit, again, within the Highland ecosystem. The mission of Pray for Ohio is to unite leaders in prayer. So oftentimes when you are engaged with call it an intercessory type of prayer ministry, you're dealing with very faithful people that are praying as individuals. They are themselves an intercessor. But the idea behind Pray for Ohio is to unite those other leaders who are also trying to unite the community of people who are praying, and then bring them into one accord, praying over and asking for the flourishing of our entire state. And Ursula, one of my counterparts, she's the executive director of that space, and she's one of those very unique individuals who she is an intercessor herself, but she's also an engineer by education, so she's very structural. So she's able to kind of just bring in the very organic nature of being an intercessor herself, but then begin to structure it and connect it structurally for the sake of our state. So in a way, it's community development, but it's, largely invisible, very relational, and maybe isn't so tangible as the nature of the work I do.
And it's all important.
Yes, it is. I would say it's far more. I mean, I can't tell you how thankful I am to feel as though my butt is covered in prayer when I'm going into communities, because, there are some things that I've sensed and felt and experienced that I wouldn't go in if I didn't feel like, there was a host praying for me.
Well, that's amazing. I'd love to have a conversation with Ursula. Perhaps we'll talk about how we might be able to make that connection as well, so that we could hear more about Pray for Ohio and the work that she is doing in that realm.
Yep.
My guest today is Chris Kelley, and we're going to wrap things up with Chris on the other side of this final timeout. And we're going to ask Chris, just to give you a heads up, Chris, about what you see for the future of your work, what you hope to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years, and who your collaborators are. I mean, who do you come alongside? Who works with you in your work? Because we all know how important that is. This is Fathering Strong. I'm Eli Williams, and we'll return after this break.
Children benefit significantly from the presence of committed, loving, nurturing fathers. Strong fathers contribute to stable families and safe, healthy communities. Fathering Strong connects, engages, and empowers fathers. Join the fatherhood movement at fatheringstrong.com to discover a wealth of resources, from inspiring videos to informative articles and instructive courses. By subscribing to our resources, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping Fathering Strong provide these valuable tools to families in need. Visit fatheringstrong.com, download the app, and subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Together, let's build stronger families and communities.
This is Fathering Strong. I'm Eli Williams, and my guest today is Chris Kelley. Chris, it has been a delight speaking with you today. I'm glad to get to know you better. And we want to kind of wrap things up by asking you about what you see as the future of the work that you are doing. What do you hope to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years, or whatever you consider to be long-term, as it relates to the future of your community development work?
Yeah. Interestingly, when I think about my kids' and my perception of the world that they're progressively stepping into, that's a big part of my thinking about the future in general. I mean, of course, for anybody who is parenting a kid, the question of the future is always out there. I think we're in a season, and I don't know how long this season is, but throughout human history, there have been some particular seasons of disruption, if I could use that term, where a number of different things kind of converged in culture and society in such a way that it changed the nature of how we live. And it's those times and seasons where after that change, there really is no going back. A lot of that's driven by technology. A lot of that's been driven by war, just these really broad, global type of events that have just changed the fabric of what life looks like for many people. And I am of the opinion we are in one of those cycles now. The accelerating nature of our political climate, the deterioration of a lot of our identity issues, all throughout the fabric of family, and the nature of technology in particular, the rate at which it is expanding and growing and developing. More recently, everybody is talking about the nature of AI. But it's a profound development to consider something like AI now being able to learn and teach other AI, because the exponential rate of development mathematically is really beyond the capacity of human understanding. And that's just one sliver of, energy, the nature of changing territories and geographies, destabilization of governments, all these types of things. Here in the state of Ohio, we've had a really significant influx of new Americans, of immigrant families coming from all around the world and populating different geographies of our state and the Midwest broadly. And it isn't just for many people a political issue or a workforce issue. There's an entirely different culture that is increasingly permeating the landscape that we have. And I'm not saying those things are good or bad. These are just things that are happening. But one of the most interesting things about that is the culture class of, we're a Western culture with a Western mindset, but you have a lot of Eastern cultures with an Eastern mindset coming. And I happen to be sensitive to that because I'm half Asian and I'm half Japanese and half Irish. And so I understand the Western conceptual kind of Greek linear thinking of how we construct and do the things that we do. And we tend to have a shorter time frame. Even our political system is tempered by limited seasons. But you've got entire family structures and cultural structures and religious structures that are increasingly coming into our landscape that don't think that way at all. Their time horizon is not 4 years or 5 years. It's 20 years. It's multi-generational. And so because I'm such a weirdo this way, I think about all that stuff, and it's part of the lens through which I'm looking at community impact and community development. Because at Highland, we're not just asking the question of, well, what can we accomplish in 3 years? We'll build some houses that will help create some jobs, and there'll be, some economic development that happens. And then hopefully we can help a few nonprofits or churches along the way. And then we're out. Sure, that's part of the reality, but the deeper reality is there is an impact and a ripple effect that's happening for many years to come. And it's impossible for us to really predict all those outcomes because there's so many different things that are interplaying in that. Our best guess, because our desire and our mission that we believe that is from the Lord, is that we are supporting the flourishing of communities. But really, it's only the Lord that fully understands what that flourishing is. And we firmly believe it goes beyond our lifetime. And so we get a glimpse, if I could put it this way, we get a glimpse of a few threads on the back of a tapestry, but I don't know what the other side of that tapestry looks like. I don't know the full picture of what the Lord is doing. And so to bring it full circle back to parenting, I'm always asking the question of, well, in as much as I'm able to in my very limited lifetime, what kind of impact do I feel like is an offering to the Lord that has some sustainability that would help to create a world that my kids would have a healthier time stepping into? And even though my kids don't live in Springfield or Circleville or in these other communities, there are kids just like mine there. There are kids that are not like mine there that need a lot more help than mine. And there are kids that are coming from entirely different cultures that, irrespective of what they think and believe, I want them to flourish too, because I know the Lord wants them to flourish too. So all those questions, those types of questions, which in a way they're impossible, we can't solve those things. But the Lord continues to say, just keep doing this work, keep trusting me. This idea of bringing the kingdom to bear in these communities, it's his work. He owns it. It's his kingdom. Jesus is the king. I just get to work in the field for a minute and then go home. So my hope, my prayer, and I know this is the hope and prayer of Highland, that the work that we're doing is a good offering, that is pleasing to the Lord, that we would have the privilege of seeing how it positively impacts some people and kids and families and communities, but also knowing that there's a deeper impact that we probably won't see. And hopefully one day when we stand before the Lord, he might reveal the breadth of the work. We might get a broader glimpse of what he was doing. And so that's really the fuel in our tank. We want to help communities today, but we're also thinking about the community that's yet to come, and that's our kids everywhere. So, that's it.
Just amazing. Just amazing. I want to give you a short window here, a small window as we close out. What would you say to a father who is watching right now? And perhaps he hasn't yet found his lane. He doesn't know yet what his life's work is, but he's got these children, and he's got a wife, perhaps, and he's listening to you and thinking, "Man, I want to be in that space where I know what my calling is, and I can see myself doing X for the rest of my life. I'd like to find that." What word of encouragement would you have for him?
Yeah. Don't neglect those feelings, that sight you have for the future. And there's some things that you need to resolve today in your own heart and your own character that allow your feet to even be pointed into a future you might be aspiring to or seeking to find out about. And it's some basic things that I suspect we all know, but we have an enemy that's constantly trying to give us different options. Many years ago, I resolved, just like my vows at the altar, for better, for worse, in sickness and health, basically, it doesn't matter. I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep stepping forward as a husband. I'm going to keep stepping forward as a father. I'd be lying if I said there are days where I didn't feel like quitting on every front, because to this day, I struggle with my own selfishness and my own self-pity and all these other things. You've got to resolve as a man not to quit and not to stray from the mission and call of God in your life. And you may not be able to really articulate what that call is yet, but I guarantee you there is a call. and it's progressively being revealed to you. If you're willing to be faithful to that, if you're willing to be humble, maybe one of the hardest things is you're willing to actually take up your cross and follow Jesus. I mean, we talk about that in church, but man, we don't really talk about this sacrificing your rights for the sake of following a master, really embracing the truth that he is the potter and we're just lumps of dirt in his hands, and that his grace is everything. I mean, one of the biggest lies that we believe, especially in the Western culture, is I'm an individual. I can do it. This is about me. I have control. And there's all this like personal throne building stuff that's built into the narrative of what a man is supposed to be. If I beat my chest loud enough, I can be the biggest, strongest gorilla in the jungle and just win. And the grossest thing is there are some people who appear to win in that system. But there's a reason why there's such a cliche story of death and decay underneath the veneer of what we call success. You have ruined families, you have ruined marriages, you have a lot of addictions and dependencies and narcissism. And it's the warning when the Lord says, if you want your sin, I'll give you over to it. If that's what you want, I'm going to give you to it. That's one of the most terrifying promises in Scripture, is that the Lord says, if you want to go be your own man, I'm going to go let you be your own man. Man, it leads to death. It leads to destruction. I've witnessed it. I've felt it forming in my own heart. I have survived some really unfortunate decisions in my own life, and the Lord has been so gracious that it didn't wreck me and my family. He taught me through pain the wisdom of my own greed, the wisdom of my own pride, the wisdom of just how desperately I need a Savior every stinking minute of the day. There's never a moment that I don't need to breathe in the gospel. Never a moment. And this whole world system is designed to convince you that what I just said is not true. It's so true. And I am very fortunate to feel as though I'm entering into midlife, and I've found my lane that the Lord has appointed to me. I realize that really is a privileged space. But I made it to 47, just floundering and stumbling around, trying to be faithful, I guess, trying to grind through it, trying to make sure I'm getting the bills paid and keeping a roof over my family and keeping food in the fridge and just all the stuff that's seemingly mundane. But I'm realizing all of that is sacred. All of that is worship. If your heart is to be faithful, the Lord redeems all of that. And you've just got to trust that he knows better. You've got to trust that. Because the moment you start taking the reins, man, things just start getting wonky. And I wouldn't advise that for anybody. I would say stick to the Lord. He knows what he's doing.
Thank you for those wise words. Our guest has been Chris Kelley. He is with Highland, and he is the Director of Community Engagement. You can learn more about Highland at their website, gohighland.com. And if you've got questions for Chris, you can contact him by email at ckelly@gohighland.com, ckelly@gohighland.com. We thank you so much, Chris, for being with us today on the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope to perhaps have you back at a second time to talk more about what's on your heart, especially as it relates to being a man and a father. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, you. I appreciate it.
And thank you, friends. Join us next time for another edition of the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you found the conversation inspiring and helpful. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just search for Fathering Strong in your favorite app. The Fathering Strong podcast is brought to you by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit organization with a 3-decade legacy dedicated to turning the hearts of fathers to their children. Thanks to your support, We're able to keep this podcast and many other resources free for dads everywhere. To learn more about Urban Light Ministries or to donate and help us continue this important work, visit urbanlight.org. The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Urban Light Ministries. Eli Williams is your host, and Bruce Stapleton of the Movementum Group is the producer and engineer. Our theme music is provided by saxophonist Harold Rayford.